Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another Magic Arena gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at a blue-black Quasiduplicate deck. It's a creature-heavy mid-range deck with a lot of creatures that have enter the battlefield abilities to take full advantage of the 3-mana sorcery that creates a token that's a copy of target creature we control, and it also has Jumpstart, so later in the game we can cast it a second time by discarding a card from our hand. So let's take a look at our entire deck list. At 1 mana we've got 2 copies of Deadweight as a cheap removal spell. Then at 2 mana we've got 2 copies of Char the Course, which lets us draw 2 cards and then discard a card unless we've attacked with a creature this turn, and since we are a creature heavy deck it's going to be pretty trivial to attack with a creature, but even if we can't attack with a creature it has nice synergy with the Jumpstart card since we can still discard it and cast it later in the game. Then we've got a bunch of 2 mana creatures, 4 copies of Dusk Legion Zealot, 2 mana for a 1/1, when it enters the battlefield loses 1 life and draws us a card, and 4 copies of Seeker Squire, 2 mana for a 1/2, that when it enters the battlefield lets us explore, so we can reveal the top card of our library. If it's a land, we get to draw it. If it's a non-land card, then we get to choose whether or not to put it in the graveyard, and Seeker Squire accumulates a +1/+1 counter. Then we've got our 4 duplicates. We've got 4 copies of Midnight Reaper, which is a 3 mana 3/2, and whenever a non-token creature we control dies, Midnight Reaper deals us 1 damage and we get to draw a card, so great in combination with all our cheap creatures that we don't mind chum blocking with. And then we've got 3 copies of Playcrafter, 3 mana for a 3/2, and when Playcrafter enters the battlefield, each player has to sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, and otherwise you have to discard a card, so Playcrafter great synergy with cards like Midnight Reaper and all the cheap expendable creatures that we don't mind sacrificing. Then we've got the full 4 copies of Ravenous Chupacabra, which is our main removal spell, 4 mana for a 2/2 creature. When it enters the battlefield we can destroy target creature an opponent controls, so another great target for our duplicate. And then we have 2 copies of Hostage Taker, which can exile an opposing artifact or creature, and we can cast it for as long as we control Hostage Taker, ignoring all color requirements. Then at 5 mana we've got 4 copies of Vampire Sovereign, which is another nice one, 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer, and when the Sovereign enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 3 life and we gain 3 life, so great enters the battlefield ability that can close out the game rather quickly, and gaining life can be very valuable against the aggressive burn decks, and another great target to copy with our duplicate. The ideal curve is turn 5 Sovereign, and then turn 6 we can duplicate twice, making 2 additional Sovereigns and draining the opponent for 6 life. And then at 6 mana our curve topper is 3 copies of Dream Eater, 6 mana for a 4/3 flyer with flash, so we can play it at instant speed, and when Dream Eater enters battlefield, first we get to surveil 4, so we get a lot of card selection, maybe mill over a Quasiduplicate in our graveyard, which is also nice. And then when we do, we get to return target non-land permanent an opponent controls back to its owner's hand. So this is a great tempo play in our creature-heavy deck, as we can get rid of a blocker and get in a big attack, and then try and close out the game by killing them with our flyers, or by draining them with Vampire Sovereign triggers. And then our mana base is pretty straightforward. We've got 8 islands, alongside 6 swamps, and 2 copies of a Memorial to Folly, which can also return creatures from our graveyard back to our hand, and then the full 4 Drowned Catacombs and 4 Watery Graves. And then taking a quick look at our sideboard, we've got 2 copies of Duress against the control decks, 2 Necrotic Wounds to get rid of recursive creatures like Rekindling Phoenix for example. We've got 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke as our counterspell of choice, alongside 1 Negate. We've got 1 Sorcerer's Spyglass to shut down opposing planeswalkers, 2 copies of Sailor of Means, which comes in against the Adanto Vanguard aggro decks as a nice blocker that also generates a treasure when it enters the battlefield, so lets us ramp into our 5 and 6 drops a turn ahead of schedule. Then we've got some sweeper effects, 2 copies of Golden Demise and 1 copy of Ritual of Soot against the aggro decks, and then 1 copy of the Eldest Reborn, which can be a nice 3-for-1 in the right matchups. So that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand seems fine. Turn 2 Zealot, turn 3 Playcrafter with a duplicate in hand. Opponent with a turn 1 Cyrus Stormtamer, so this looks like maybe the mono blue tempo deck, which could be problematic if they start off with an obsession and they can protect their creatures instead. Turn 2 Swamp, so blue-black. Maybe a Pirates deck. Alright, let's see what they want to do about a Zealot. So our opponent could have a Lookout's Dispersal here for 2 mana since the Stormtamer's a pirate, but they let it resolve. End of turn Direfleet Poisoner. So it does look like a blue-black pirate deck. Gets in for 3, we'll take it. And now we can decide between a Midnight Reaper and a Playcrafter. Which one would we rather resolve and which one would we rather have countered? I think I'm gonna give them the Reaper to counter here. Alright. Opponent's got the Lookout's Dispersal. We'll get in for one. And Hostage Taker is not a bad pickup. So we could double the 2-drop here, which plays better into another counterspell from the opponent. Hostage Taker also gets countered by the Stormtamer's ability, potentially. Even though it would still be fine if they do. So I think we just go Zealot plus Seeker Squire here. Alright, land's good. So I don't really feel inclined to attack here. Opponent just untaps. 5 mana for another Stormtamer, and they attack with both. So our opponent could have another Direfleet Poisoner here to give this +1/+1, in which case double blocking is not going to be enough. But yeah, I guess the solution would be triple blocking, which, I mean, is also not great, since then they get to trade a Poisoner for all our creatures. So I think we do just double block. Alright, they've got a Dive Down instead to save the Poisoner, that's fine. So they've got 1 card left in hand, and we've got 5 mana, which means Seeker Squire plus Playcrafter here. Seems good to me. Draws a land. Playcrafter. Sack a Seeker Squire. So we're taking a little bit of damage still from the Siren Stormtamers in the air, which they're gonna decide to keep here, so we might as well attack. Since it didn't look like they had another Poisoner last turn. But then the Dream Eater is going to be able to block the Stormtamers going forward. Untapped Watery Grave, so our opponent's going to maybe plan to use a Memorial here. Nope, it's going to be their own Hostage Taker. Stealing the Seeker Squire. And they're going to replay it right away. Alright, well, at least now we can resolve whatever we want. So we could play Dream Eater, bouncing our own Seeker Squire. We could Hostage Taker the Hostage Taker, but then of course they still get to keep the Seeker Squire, and if they find removal for our Hostage Taker, they get to Hostage Take again, which could be a little sketchy. So it's probably safer to just cast a Dream Eater right now, bouncing the Seeker Squire, and our opponent might be able to Poisoner back, and then if we block with Dream Eater, Poisoner on the Stormtamer. So we might then just take the damage so we can duplicate Dream Eater a few times. I think that's okay. And duplicates in the graveyards, totally fine. Don't need more lands. And then we'll bounce Seeker Squire. And I don't think we attack with Playcrafter here. Since if they do get rid of Dream Eater, we want it back to block Hostage Taker. Alright, opponent just drew a land, so they're gonna probably use a Memorial here. So we don't want to block with Dream Eater, otherwise they can Memorial back the Poisoner and give the Hostage Taker Death Touch. Whereas if we block with Playcrafter, we trade and they get Hostage Taker in the graveyard. They can get it back with Memorial, but they can't replay the Hostage Taker this turn since they've already played a land, so I think this is fine. So opponent lets the trade happen. And just lets us untap. So Poisoner only works on an attacking parrot, so we're fine to attack with our Dream Eater first here. And then we can copy it twice with duplicates. I think that's a totally reasonable play here. So our opponent takes it. We'll duplicate from hand first. And Chupacabra and Vampire Sovereign are both excellent here. Don't think we need Memorial. So which one would we rather play first? Probably the Vampire Sovereign. So if our opponent gets back Hostage Taker and steals our Dream Eater, I guess they can exile the token for good. So that's probably the play they will make. So yeah, I think we'll keep the Sovereign on top, and I don't think we need the Chupacabra, given all the Siren Storm Tamers they have anyway. Attempt to bounce the Storm Tamer. And then we'll pay 2. So we can duplicate again. And then discarding probably the Seeker Square, since we might need the other land. So yeah, I'm expecting our opponent to get back Hostage Taker end of turn, then exile one of our Dream Eater tokens. But then next turn we can play a Vampire Sovereign and copy it with a duplicate, which might be enough to finish off our opponent here. So I don't think we need another Chupacabra. I guess our opponent can chum block with Storm Tamers to stay alive next turn. And it's going to be a freebooter first, which is going to miss. Another reason to play out the duplicates from hand first. And they're just going to Storm Tamer plus Hostage Taker. Ooh, our opponent gets pretty greedy here, going for the 6 mana Dream Eater. So we can attack with our Dream Eaters. And our opponent's just going to scoop it up here, yeah. So we would have attacked, and then we could have had the play where we play a Vampire Sovereign from hand and copy it right away with the duplicate for 6 damage, essentially. And I don't think our opponent survives that. Alright, so against the blue-black pirate deck, how do we want to sideboard? Golden Mice could be good, Ritual of Soot looks good. As ways to get rid of their creatures that ignores Siren Storm Tamer. The 4 mana removal spells are a bit slow, Hostage Taker and Chupacabra in the face of Storm Tamers, but they do dodge Freebooter at least. Not entirely sure what we should be taking out. And Dream Eater's nice to block their flyers later in the game, like we saw in that game. I think I will try to shave on Dream Eater since it is a bit slow and expensive in the matchup, which is pretty fast. And I could see shaving 1 Playcrafter and then maybe 1 Midnight Reaper, since opponent's got a lot of flyers, so Midnight Reaper's not always going to be able to trade off like we wanted to. Yeah, something like this is probably fine. Alright, this hand seems reasonable. A little bit on the slow side, but turn 2 Char the Course, turn 3 Playcrafter to get started. Let's see if they have a Curious Obsession this time around. Nope, it's going to be a Phantom Fleet Captain, so another pretty powerful pirates. So let's go ahead and Char the Course. And I think we just discard a duplicate here. Alright, so we are a little bit behind on board, so this is where something like a Golden Mice or a Ritual of Soot could catch us back up. Opponent's going to make a pirate, so they don't have to commit any additional resources to the board. So Playcrafter not looking too hot here, but I think it's still a play. Opponent sacks the pirates. And then next turn we can Chupacabra. Opponent could protect with a Storm Tamer. Well, there's a Golden Mice, so I think that makes more sense than Chupacabra here, otherwise our opponent can just counter with a Storm Tamer, and we just have a Chupacabra facing 2 menace creatures, which we can block. So let's just Golden Mice here. And now we get to destroy all their follow-up creatures with our 2 Chupacabras. Thief of Sanity. They could have a dive down, but if they had a dive down, they could have potentially saved one of their creatures with dive down from the Golden Mice. So I don't necessarily put them on having dive down in hand. If we Vampire Sovereign, we have a blocker, but if our opponent then has a Hostage Taker, the Vampire Sovereign goes away and they hit us with a Thief. So I think the correct play is just to Chupacabra for now and hope it resolves. Alright. Another Phantom Fleet Captain. And I think they have a Lookout's Dispersal that they want to use here. So whatever we play, they'll end up countering. We could Seeker Squire, see if they want to counter that, and then we can just Quasiduplicate on the Chupacabra. If our opponent has a cast down, we get punished. Don't really want to tap out for a Vampire Sovereign in the face of a counterspell. So I think this makes sense. Play Seeker Squire. Hope to draw into a land so we can discard it to our duplicates. Or we could keep it and still play Chupacabra. Maybe that's just safer here since I kind of want a 6th land for Dream Eater anyway. So let's see if they want to counter this one. But then there's no reason for us to attack since we want both blockers back to block the menacing captain. Alright, they let the Chupacabra resolve, get to kill the captain. And might as well attack with the Chupacabra now. If they have a poisoner they want to trade with, that's fine by me. Opponent does nothing. Untapped 5th land for another Thief of Sanity. But Thief of Sanity is not a pirate, so they can't actually cast a Lookout's Dispersal if that's what they have. The fact that their opponent played an untapped Watergrave probably implies that they have something like a Direfleet Poisoner, a Cast Down, or maybe a counterspell like Disdainful Stroke at the ready. Negate can counter the duplicates. Disdainful Stroke can counter Vampire Sovereign and Dream Eater. So what's the play? I mean, we can start by attacking with the Chupacabras, I guess. Opponent takes it. And I think we do want to make an action during our turn, since otherwise if our opponent untaps, they get access to 3 mana for Lookout's Dispersal. So I think it's to our advantage to make them have a more specific counterspell here. I think we just Vampire Sovereign here. Alright, they did have a Disdainful Stroke, that's too bad. So had we gone for the duplicate, we could have potentially killed the Thief of Sanity here. But then again, duplicate could run into a cast down, which would be pretty bad. And our opponent gets to copy the thief, but then the duplicate goes to our graveyard, so we actually got a little bit of value from that exchange. And now Ritual of Soot is looking great. If the Ritual of Soot gets countered, we're in a bit of trouble. I think we'll start by attacking with the Chupacabras. I doubt our opponent will block, but they might do something different. Could also Hostage Taker the copy of Thief of Sanity and exile it for good. So we could just cast 2 duplicates, killing both Thieves of Sanity. But Ritual of Soot is quite tempting here. If they have a Lookout's Dispersal, the Ritual of Soot gets punished a little bit harder than just going for a double duplicate, because then at least we get to kill 1 Thief of Sanity. We could also Dream Eater in their turn, bouncing the copy. And then if they use a counterspell, at least they're mostly tapped out during our turn, so we can resolve the Ritual of Soot, which can potentially kill them. So if we put our opponent on having a Lookout's Dispersal, I think the best course of action might just be to Dream Eater in their turn, instead of trying to Ritual of Soot here. I think that makes sense. And I think we'll do it on upkeep, so we don't let them draw into a counterspell. Alright, that worked. So now we get to bounce the token of Thief of Sanity to get rid of it for good. Another duplicate can go to the graveyard. And then do we want to land? Land 7 could be useful at letting us double spell. So I think we put the Sovereign in the graveyard. And then we'll bounce the token. Alright, so they did have the cast downs. Had we gone for duplicates, it would not have worked out. And we got rid of 1 thief. And our opponent is facing a lethal on the ground here, so they do need to come up with something. Thief of Sanity hitting us is also another reason to keep the land on top. So if they do hit us with a Thief of Sanity, one of the 3 cards they'll find is a land, instead of more value like, for example, a Vampire Sovereign. And Hostage Taker is going to exile Seeker Squire. But that's not going to be good enough here, since we can just attack and then Vampire Sovereign for the win. So that was a very interesting game, a lot of decisions, a lot of back and forth, lots of interaction, but at the end of the day we got to win, so on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with the 1-lander that we sadly can't keep. Alright, this is better missing black mana, but hopefully we can find it with our Scry. Don't really want to go to 5 here. And then the Zealot and the Seeker Square can help us hit more land drops. And Island will have to bottom. Alright, hopefully we can find a black source in time. Opponent appears to be on mono red. Turn 2 Runaway Steamkin. Alright, still no land. At least our opponent's gonna maybe play around a counterspell here. Vaishino Pyromancer. Resolves. Pyromancer hits us for 2, and there's a swamp. Alright, right on time. So what's the play? I think we just go for the Midnight Reaper here. Since even if they put one more counter on the Steamkin, we can trade. And if they kill it, at least we get to draw a card and get closer towards casting Chupacabra and Hostage Taker. It's gonna be a shock to kill it. So down to 16 we go. And another duplicate, which is not looking too great here. Alright, so we're taking 7. We need to draw a swamp here. Shard of course instead. Alright, I guess we'll lead with Seeker Squire. Hope to find an untapped swamp so we can play Dusk Legion Zealot as well. Just need to get lucky at this point to have a chance. Alright, there's a swamp. So there's still a glimmer of hope. And find another Seeker Squire. Alright, so they could Firebrand the Zealot so we can chum block the Steamkin. Opponent can also remove some counters from the Steamkin here to do something end of turn. And it looks like they do. And it's going to be a Lightning Strike pointed at our face. Alright. And a Wizard's Lightning as well, so we're down to 2. And our opponent can just sacrifice a Firebrand to take out our Zealot attack with everyone and we'll be dead. Alright, so going to game 2. We want to bring in the Sailor of Means as a nice cheap blocker that can survive most of their burn spells. Golden Mice is okay at cleaning up their small stuff, and Ritual of Sid could also be fine. We could also consider a Negate to counter Experimental Frenzy, which is their scariest card. I think the rest is a little bit too narrow in that regard. So we've got these cards coming in. What do we take out? Dream Eater's a little bit on the slow side, so I could see cutting at least 1, maybe 2. What else do we take out? Playcrafter's not at its best here since their opponent has so many small creatures they can sacrifice to it. And I could also see shaving 1 duplicate since it's kind of a late game card which we won't always be able to get to. So if we do want to bring in a Negate, we could shave another duplicate, we could take out maybe another Dream Eater. But we do want a little bit of late game. And now with the Sailor we get access to a little bit more mana. So I think we'll try as is and just try to beat Experimental Frenzy by outvaluing them with Duplicate and Sovereigns and Dream Eaters. If we see Rekindling Phoenix out of the opponent's sideboard, we might consider Necrotic Wound as well for game 3 if we happen to win. But I don't think we want it unless we see a Phoenix. Alright, this hand's okay if we can draw lands once again. Let's lead with a Swamp. Alright. Golden Mice will be useful. So playing double Zealot's pretty ugly in the face of a potential Goblin Chainwhirler. Oof, still no land. Alright, I guess we'll attack. And still no third land. Alright, this is going to be painful. Of course, Vampire Sovereign, one of our better cards in the matchup, but if we're going to miss land drops, then it's not going to be very useful. Alright, they have a treasure map instead, so their opponent going a little bit bigger after sideboard here. And we get to untap and pick up a Watery Grave. Alright, let's go for it. Play Midnight Reaper. Attacking here would be really bad if our opponent has a shock. So I think we'll stay back for now. And then I'm happy to trade off some creatures here to draw more cards with the Midnight Reaper. Hostage Taker can potentially exile Treasure Map before it transforms, but we don't have one in hand, so Seems unlikely. Opponent is gonna kill the Reaper. Get to draw a card. Alright, that's good. And the Pyromancer. Alright. Question here is, do we chump block the Steamkin? Or do we take 3? I think chump blocking's probably okay. Alright, so we've got land 5 for Vampire Sovereigns, so we'll be able to cast Vampire Sovereigns for days. So we'll probably just play another Reaper here. Golden Demise no longer kills a Steamkin, so that's not great. And there's a Rekindling Phoenix. Alright, so the necrotic wounds are probably coming in. For now, our best answer to Phoenix is a Hostage Taker. And Dream Eater can bounce a Phoenix for a turn. So yeah, the Rekindling Phoenix is definitely going to be an issue here. So what's the play? Probably just playing a Vampire Sovereign. And then we could trade for a Phoenix and then kill it with Golden Mice. Don't hate it. Not really in a spot where we can attack. Alright, they're attacking. So we'll block with our Vampire Sovereign here. Pretty gladly. Get to draw a card with Midnight Reaper. And the hope is they can't cast another red spell so the Steamkin doesn't outgrow the Golden Demise, but that's probably ambitious. Alright, they're gonna Wizard's Lining the Midnight Reaper. That's fine, what's gonna die to the Golden Demise anyway. And Chupacabra could also be useful. And a Frenzy. Well, that's a nice last card to have after playing 2 copies of Rekindling Phoenix. Their opponent had a pretty ideal draw here. They're going to remove the counters from Steamkin to cast an extra card here, Lava Coil on the Zealot. Alright, hopefully they can't cast anything else here and we get to punish them with the Golden Demise. Probably just going to scry with the Treasure Map. Alright, so Golden Demise is going to be quite good here, killing everything except for Rekindling Phoenix. And then afterwards we can still play a 3-drop, which probably means Chart a Course, so might as well Chart a Course first. And then discard a Dusk Legion Zealot. Play Golden Mice. Yeah, definitely should have tapped our lands a bit better. We could have tapped double Island here, so if we drew into a Deadweight we could have still cast it. But I doubt we would have used it on the Phoenix here, since next turn we can go Chupacabra, Phoenix plus Deadweighted potentially. So now we just have to beat an Experimental Frenzy and a flipped Treasure Map, which is going to be a challenge, but at least we're not dead yet. A Dream Eater is pretty effective against an Experimental Frenzy, since we can also decide to bounce a Phoenix and have it stuck in their hand. So that might be the play here. We could try and ambush the Steamkin as well with the Dream Eater, might be a little bit greedy, or we could just deadweight the Steamkin right now and then try and bounce the Phoenix. That might be a bit more safe here. Lots of ways we could handle the Phoenix here potentially, but I do like pressuring them with the Dream Eater. So we might as well let them untap. Land off the top. Phoenix attacks. And looking for a bunch of duplicates here to copy our Vampire Sovereigns. No such luck. Do we want to keep Chart a Course? I mean, it is a play we can make alongside the Sovereign, so it's probably good enough. And if the Dream Eater happens to survive, we get to draw 2 instead of having to discard as well. So Phoenix gets bounced. And if they want to replay it, they'll have to get rid of the Frenzy. Lightning Strike going to the face. That's aggressive. Could have killed the Dream Eater. So how do we try to ambush the Steamkin? That would have not worked out, since they would have just killed the Dream Eater in response then. Opponent's going to play another Treasure Map off the top, which is also pretty useful in combination with Frenzy, since you can bottom any additional lands, so you can keep finding action, like a 3rd Treasure Map and a Steamkin. Opponent with a transformational sideboard plan here, taking out some of their cheaper creatures for treasure maps and frenzies potentially. And a Goblin Chain Whirler. It's gonna put us to 3. Get to untap. So we do get to attack with our Dream Eater here. Draw 2 with Charter Course. Alright, Sailor of Means plus land. So if we play Sailor of Means, we can still play a 4-drop, so we could go Sailor plus Chupacabra. Is that better than just playing a Vampire Sovereign here? Probably not. So technically we have lethal next turn with a second Vampire Sovereign, but they're likely to find some removal spells here, or they might just kill us. And they could always decide to sack the Frenzy to play Rekindling Phoenix. And it's gonna be Lightning Strike to the face. So now we're just dead here. Fanatical Firebrand. I guess we could have 1 mana interaction here, like a Necrotic Wound. But yeah, if we were to play game 3, we'd definitely bring in the Necrotic Wounds to answer Phoenix cleanly. And not entirely sure what we would be taking out. Opponent did keep him quite a few 1-drops as well. So it's not like our cheap sweeper effects are totally worthless. Yeah, I'm not sure what they took out to make room for all those treasure maps. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, and this hand seems fine. Turn 2 Seeker Squire, turn 3 Playcrafter, which we can sack the Seeker Squire to, and then Duplicate as a nice late game play, hoping to draw into some more 4 and 5 mana plays. Let's see what we're up against. Tapped is at Guildgate, so some blue-red deck. And finds another Playcrafter, which we probably don't need here. Yeah, Seeker Squire a lot better if we actually find a land with it, since then it's a better target to sacrifice to Playcrafter. Discovery, so opponent looks to be on the Is it Drake's deck. Could just copy the Seeker Squire with the Duplicate here, which might be the play. Hostage Taker's not bad. Yeah, I think we'll just copy it here. Finds a land, so that's a much better target for Playcrafter. Opponent put a Beacon Bolt in the graveyard with Discovery. And it's going to be a Charter Course to draw 2 and discard 1. Discards Arclight Phoenix, so next turn that might be able to come back. So don't have a great play this turn necessarily. If we Playcrafter and make them discard, they could discard an additional Phoenix, which would actually be bad for us. Or we could just do nothing, which is also reasonable. Since if we want to jumpstart a Duplicate, of course we'll have to discard another card. And we kind of want everything in our hand. And maybe save the Duplicate to copy a Vampire Sovereign, which is a much better target. Could play Hostage Taker just to put a 2-3 into play, but we might get better value if we wait. Of course we have these 2 Vampire Sovereigns that we want to be playing here as well. Opponent used the Shock to kill our Seeker Squire, that's interesting, since you would think they want to keep the Shock as a cheap spell to play to power up the Arclight Phoenix. Yeah, I think we're just going to chill here, play Tapped Watery Grave. Not really in a hurry, and we can just play the long game with double Sovereign, Hostage Taker stealing something, and the Vampire Sovereign matches up pretty well against the Phoenix. If they have a Lava Coil, they could deal with the first Sovereign, hopefully not the second one. Alright, they're gonna Lava Coil the Seeker Squire instead, that's fine. Alright, so feels like we're doing pretty well here. Opponent stuck on 3 lands. Pretty far away from getting back the Phoenix. And we can start pressuring them with Vampire Sovereigns. Hoping to dodge a second Lava Coil. Although I guess Beacon Bolt is pretty close to killing it too here. Yeah, Beacon Bolt would have been able to kill it as well. Alright, so there's a Beacon Bolt. And they discarded a Crackling Drake to it. So let's Vampire Sovereign again. Opponent down to 10. Got plenty of answers to creatures in hand with Chupacabra, Hostage Taker and Playcrafter. So this Crackling Drake's not really a problem. So I think we'll Seeker Squire plus Playcrafter here over Chupacabra, as it's a bit more mana efficient. They could shock the Seeker Squire response, which is what they'll do. Alright, fair enough. Chupacabra we can put in the graveyard for now. And then we'll still Playcrafter. Sacking Playcrafter. Get in for 3. Alright. If they can Lava Coil the Sovereign, we could be in a bit of trouble. But if they just play more creatures, we'll be okay. Goblin Electromancer into Radical Idea, so seems likely that they'll get back a Phoenix here. Since they can jumpstart Radical Idea and then they just need a 1-mana red spell. And an untapped Steam Vents as well. They're gonna Radical Idea discarding a Murmuring Mystic, which was not gonna be great against a removal heavy draw. Shock to the face to get back Arclight Phoenix, so doesn't really explain why they pay 2 life to play a Steam Vents untapped and our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so that game went pretty well. How do we want to sideboard in this matchup? So this is where Necrotic Wound is interesting, since it can exile Arclight Phoenix for good. Eldest Reborn is also decent as just a nice value card that can potentially get a 3-for-1. And that's about it. I mean, Disdainful Stroke can also have its moments, countering Crackling Drakes to prevent the card draw. Maybe if your opponent has a sideboard plan of going bigger, it could be okay, but overall a little bit too conditional. Sailor of Means doesn't do much since all their threats have flying, and the rest can also be okay. But I don't think we need to bring in much in this matchup. The 2 Necrotic Wounds and maybe the Eldest Reborn, but that's about it. And what do we take out? I think I still like Deadweight to take out the Electromancer on the cheap. Playcrafter's great against Niv Mizzet, but I doubt he'll bring it in. Chupacabra is also still good at killing the Drakes. So there's not much we want to take out, to be honest. Maybe Hostage Taker's not super reliable, since our opponent has plenty of removal to kill it before we get to untap with it. So I could see maybe getting rid of Hostage Taker in favor of Necrotic Wound, since they can both kind of answer the Arclight Phoenix, but Necrotic Wound might be a little bit more reliable. And then I'm not sure if we need the Eldest Reborn. It's a nice play, but I guess we'll maybe take out a Playcrafter for it. Yeah, sure, we'll try this. Alright, this hand seems fine. We can copy the Zealot if we don't have another turn 3 play. And then Chupacabra as a nice removal spell in the matchup. And Remeter a way to apply pressure once the dust has settled. Alright, so Zealot versus Seeker Squire. We do want to hit lands at this point, and if Squire picks up a counter, it can block the Electromancer. So I think that's probably okay here. Alright, finds a land. So opponent with a better start than last time with a turn 2 Electromancer in play. But they're not going to do anything with it, and there's Necrotic Wound. So duplicates would be pretty risky in the face of removal spells, so I would rather just Dusk Legion Zealot here. Find another duplicate. Alright, so next turn the play is going to be Chupacabra on Electromancer unless they play a Crackling Drake. It's going to be 1 mana for Discovery, which puts Tormenting Voice and Opt in the graveyard. Radical Idea for 1 mana. But they don't have another blue source to jumpstart and potentially discard a Phoenix. So opponent's just gonna say go. Could have been worse. And yeah, I think we just Chupacabra here. We've got the duplicate to copy the Chupacabra if we need it. And let's just get in a small attack here. And then next turn the play is probably going to be Midnight Reaper. Unless we need to kill a creature. Necrotic Wound so far, no creatures in the graveyard. But that's probably not going to stay that way for long. Alright, let's get in there. Play a Reaper. Say go. And hope to dodge a Lava Coil on the Midnight Reaper, which is the best answer to it. 6 mana. Niv Mizzet is not really a concern, since we can just duplicate Chupacabra to kill it. So it's going to be Discovery. And so far the graveyard still doesn't have any copies of Arclight Phoenix. Shock killing Midnight Reaper, that's fine. Get to draw a card, get to put a creature in the graveyard for Necrotic Wound. Alright, still nothing. So not sure what our opponent has in hand at this point. We're just gonna attack. And then we can play Zealot plus another Reaper. And then next turn we'll have the option of Dream Eater as well. Could have also played Untapped Catacomb here, so we have access to Necrotic Wound. But then next turn we can just go Dream Eater plus Necrotic Wound. Alright, there's Niv Mizzet, so... So we've got a few ways to answer Niv Mizzet. Opponent could have also been holding on to a Dive Down to protect Niv Mizzet. Which we can't really beat here, since if we Chupacabra, that sorcery speed, we can't really duplicate in response at instant speed. So given that Dive Down beats us anyway, we might just want to Dream Eater Niv Mizzet to put that into play, and then next turn we can attempt to maybe get rid of Niv Mizzet. I think that makes sense. Alright, Eldest Reborn's also a nice answer to Niv Mizzet that can dodge a Dive Down. So I think we'll keep that, and then another Dream Eater's probably fine. Bounce Niv. And they do have the Dive Down, fair enough. So we'll just pass a turn. And hopefully Niv doesn't do too much damage. And then next turn we get to contain it with the Eldest Reborn. Alright, so your opponent's gonna have a pretty sweet turn here. Could potentially Necrotic Wound Niv Mizzet here as well. We'll see. Yeah, I don't really agree with bringing in Niv Mizzet in this matchup just because it lines up so poorly against Playcrafters and Chupacabras, which your opponent has seen. So now they're gonna go after the Chupacabra. So again, we could Necrotic Wound here, but then we're giving the opponent an extra draw. Electromancer still fine since we can Deadweight plus the Eldest Reborn. Not a radical idea for 1 mana. So your opponent did have a pretty nice turn after untapping with Niv Mizzet, not gonna lie. But I think we'll still be okay. more radical ideas. So our opponent is tapped out, so we don't even have to play around a dive down necessarily. So we could just Necrotic Wound here, but I think our play is just going to be Deadweight Electromancer and then Eldest Reborn. Keep Necrotic Wound for later as a nice 1-mana instant that we can play to kill anything. Alright, if they have another Niv Mizzet, we've got another Chupacabra. It's gonna be Electromancer first. So we might respond to their first instant here. It's gonna be a Ral. Alright, it's unfortunate, since we're out of ways to destroy Planeswalkers. But I think we'll just Necrotic Wound the Electromancer. Get that out of the way. Opponent's gonna Radical Idea in response, discarding a Lava Coil. And then I think the plan's gonna be to play the Dream Eater end of turn so it doesn't die to Sorcery Speed removal, and then try to copy it twice in our turn, or maybe just once given that we don't have quadruple blue. I guess we also have a Memorial, but there's no Playcrafters in the graveyard that we can return. Alright, opponent has to discard. So we're just gonna say go here, I think. Need the Dream Eater to survive. I doubt our opponent has any counterspells, given that they already brought in Niv Mizzet and Ral and dive downs potentially. Alright, discards Phoenix. So they will be able to get back a Phoenix here. Most likely. But just a 1. Alright, I guess the second one too. So we might have to just bounce a Phoenix instead here. Opponent did already plus Ral, so we don't have to be worried about opponent Mindstring Ral on Dream Eater. Alright, and a giant Crackling Drake. That's fine. Double Phoenix returns. Next turn we're also getting back a creature from the graveyard, which is probably going to be Niv Mizzet, would be my guess. And, interesting. So next turn our plan's probably going to be to Chupacabra the Crackling Drake, and then we can duplicate something. And there's still going to be a Phoenix in play that they can sacrifice to the Playcrafter, so we won't be able to kill Ral that way. But a Vampire Sovereign's pretty nice to copy with our duplicates. So I think we'll keep that on top, and then Playcrafter in the graveyard we can potentially still return with our Memorial. So we'll bounce a Phoenix. Take 3. And what do we get back? I guess we could have actually potentially gotten lethal here had we put our Vampire Sovereign in the graveyard with the Surveil, gotten it back with Eldest Reborn, bounced the Crackling Drake instead of the Phoenix, and then copied our Sovereign twice with duplicates. But I guess we don't have quadruple blue, so I guess that wouldn't have worked. So yeah, I think we're just getting back a Niv Mizzet here. Could also get back another Dream Eater. Is that better than Niv Mizzet? I doubt it. Yeah, let's just get back Niv. Alright, so we want to Chupacabra first here. So let's Chupacabra the Crackling Drake. Hope they don't have a dive down. And then we probably want to attack Ral. And then by copying something with a duplicate, we make sure Ral can't minus to kill Niv Mizzet. So we'll probably just copy another Dream Eater. Ping 1 on Ral. And then we can bounce another Phoenix here. That can all go to the graveyard. And we picked up another island, so we can duplicate twice now. Alright, so feels like we're doing okay. We can Vampire Sovereign into duplicate next turn for 6 damage. If our opponent plays a bunch of cantrips now, Niv-Mizzet is going to punish them. And we've got 2 flying blockers for the Arclight Phoenix, but we'll see. Anything could happen here. Alright, Beacon Bolt's a pretty effective removal spell. So we'll deal 1 to our opponents. So if our opponent has a cheap way to discard Arclight Phoenix, could be in trouble. Beacon Bolt discarding Arclight Phoenix, killing the original Dream Eater. 5 mana left. And yep, Lava Coil taking out the other Dream Eater. Radical Idea. Gets back a Phoenix. Phoenix gets in for 3. So I don't think we have lethal here. We can put our opponent to 1, which is not quite lethal, so we might as well attack Ral with our Chupacabra then. Seems okay. Also possible we should have dealt 1 damage to Ral instead of our opponent last turn with the Niv-Mizzet ping. But yeah. Let's play our Sovereign. And then we could keep the other duplicate as a surprise, but I think it's probably just better to jumpstart here, discarding the Zealot. And then play tapped Watery Grave so we have access to more mana next turn, which could be useful. Alright, if we can survive here, we're looking good, since we can activate Memorial and maybe get back a Sovereign from the graveyard if we have one there. Although I guess we don't. So if they Lava Coil the Sovereign, then we won't be able to return it. But as long as the token's still around, we can copy it with a duplicate. Alright, Electromancer's gonna be pretty scary here. Opponent might be able to get back 2 copies of Arclight Phoenix. Opponent's also slowly running out of cards, only 8 remaining, so there's that too. Opponent saw a lot of cards with all those Ral activations. Crackling Drake, alright. Doesn't matter as long as we survive and get to untap and play duplicate on Vampire Sovereign. It's gonna be Beacon Bolts. Alright, so they do get to kill both Sovereigns, but then we can just Memorial get 1 back for the last 3 points. So unless they have a maximized velocity on the Crackling Drake, we would still get there. So 1 mana left. Is it a maximized velocity? Or do they have all 3 copies of Phoenix in the graveyard? They've got 2, so they would put us to 1 here by attacking with triple Phoenix. And it's going to be a Lava Coil and Chupacabra, doesn't matter, so don't know if the opponent could have sequenced things differently, but Lava Coil on Vampire Sovereign would have been the winning play. So we fall to 1, untap, and yeah, the decision last turn of playing the tapped Watery Grave definitely coming up huge here, since we can now get back our Vampire Sovereign, and we have exactly enough mana to replay it. Wow, that was an epic game. Niv-Mizzet almost got our opponent back into the game. We got to steal Niv-Mizzet for 1 turn, but in the end, Vampire Sovereign able to close out the game. Alright, sweet. So that's gonna do it for today's gameplay. Wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.